Hello, everybody, and welcome to Countdown to Infinity. This is episode 22, and we're here to talk about Endgame. It is, It is 11:45 on Friday. This is Matt. I'm James. We're in the studio for, anybody. So, this podcast is probably going to sound a hell of a lot better than normal, and it's going to look a lot different because there's actually video. It's not very exciting if you just want to see two very tired boys who stayed up way too late last night watching a movie. Head over to the YouTubes. But we're here today because we're ready to talk about this movie that we've been waiting for like 10 years.
We're in the end game now.
We're in the... I'm so sad. What's next? I don't know.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, I guess that is the immediate answer to that question. But I guess we start like we do with all of these podcasts with a Matt recap.
Is that how we're starting this?
A Matt cap.
You didn't run this over with me.
What? That's exactly what we talked about.
No, we talked about the structure of this, and we didn't talk about doing this.
Yeah, I said we'd do a quick recap, then we'd talk about the OG6.
You did say we'd do a quick recap.
Then we would go in about all the cool stuff that we liked and maybe things we didn't like so much. Maybe we'd nitpick. And then theoretically, we'll rank the movie because that's what we do.
Okay.
So you have to give a quick recap, and I'm timing you.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
45 seconds. Go.
3
hours
and
45.
3 hour minute movie. Okay. So you may recall the events of Infinity War.
I don't, but we'll just assume I do.
The chat, the
viewers,
listeners.
Yep, they do. They know what's going on.
They probably do. You may recall in the events of Infinity War, Thanos snapped his fingers and wiped out half of all life in the galaxy.
Universe.
Yep. Sorry. Multiple galaxies.
Like 3.
That we know of.
3 whole galaxies.
So naturally, this has caused some problems. Earth is now, every planet is now lacking half of its population of life. Earth is decaying into the post-apocalypse, basically, because we are now post-apocalyptic.
I get so the movie
opens basically right at the snap.
It takes place 3 weeks.
So the events of the beginning take place 3 weeks.
Because the line Tony Stark says in the ship while recording that message to Pepper is it's been 22 days since the events. So we're talking 3 weeks.
Okay, so we open the movie. Clint, Hawkeye, watches his entire family get dusted.
That was real good.
Oh, man.
I knew that moment. It was one of the few things that I knew the minute they opened that film on Hawkeye and his 3 kids and the wife. I'm like, oh no. And that makes so much sense.
It was the way they did it where he turns around and then turns back and he's just like, what is it, Lana? Is his daughter's name? It's just like name? Lana. Yeah. And you can just there's a tree there that's got leaves and things, and you can just sort of see the little bit of dust drifting away. And I was sitting in my seat just going, oh no.
Yeah. You knew going in,
of course,
with the whole his subplot with what he's been up to since the snap that something bad was going to happen. But anyways, his whole family poof.
Yeah. So my hope that the girl Archer in the movie was going to be Kate, obviously not his daughter, which easily predictable, but beside the point. So anyhow, Clint gets his family dusted. That's how we open the movie. Then we come back to Tony floating in space on the Guardians ship, which has now broken down, basically. Nebula's with him. He's about to run out of air.
Although not seen, which is kind of interesting.
Sorry?
Rocket's there with them.
Oh, right.
He's on the ship,
but
you don't actually learn that until they get back to Earth, which was an interesting choice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So anyhow, he records his final message to Pepper, and just as he's about to drift off, lo and behold, Captain Marvel appears and rescues them and flies their ship back to Earth. They arrive on Earth. They all get together, all the various Avengers. Introductions are done with Carol, and they all decide, well, we failed, but we got to go find Thanos anyhow, and he'll have the Infinity Stones, so we'll just go find Thanos, get the Infinity Stones from him, and undo the snap, and everything will be fine. So they head off to the garden. The planet was just called the Garden.
Yeah, it was just the Garden.
Where Thanos ended up. They've determined that he's there because there was another pulse of energy from the Infinity Stones. So
Also, can I just say, loved Thanos in a t-shirt.
yes, in
That
a
was
like gray
amazing.
t-shirt.
Yeah, just a gray t-shirt and some
Making
pants.
dinner.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I just love that. It was great.
Yeah. So they head off to the garden. They attack Thanos. They manage to subdue him, but they find out from him that the previous pulse that the like energy pulse from the Infinity Stones was him destroying the Infinity Stones. And so the Infinity Stones no longer exist, and Thor chops his head off in a fit of anger. Fast forward 5 years. Now the world is
right. Holy moly! That was a shocker. I was like, because and the way they did that title was like 5.
It took so long,
and then they just hung on 5 for long enough that you're thinking days, weeks, months, years. What? Super good.
Yeah. So flash forward 5 years, and the world is descending into sort of like the post-apocalypse because there's half as many humans on the planet. It's not so much like Mad Max as just it's like the first Mad Max as opposed to like the later Mad Maxes where we're sort of in the decline of society.
Everybody's just real sad.
Everybody's real sad. Everybody's got trauma because everybody lost someone. And the world is pretty empty at this point because, of course, it was built for twice as many people as there are people. So a lot of urban decay is occurring as houses are abandoned and things like that. So world is coming apart a little bit. But people are trying to continue their daily lives. Cap is running a support group.
That's one of my favorite moments from early in the movie with him taking on that role that Sam had.
Yeah.
As sort of the support guy, presumably it's not really clear what it is, but I just kind of placed it as the VA like Sam was doing in Winter Soldier, and I was so happy with that. One of my favorite little bits.
Also, it's sure. Joe Russo as the guy,
yes, as the guy
talking about his date,
and apparently playing the first openly gay character in a Marvel movie.
Yes,
yeah, which is kind of cool.
So anyhow, that happens. I don't remember what the next inciting incident is, but they
after that,
that's right.
It's basically like it's kind of like everybody. It's you're getting a sense of like what life is like. You go back to the Avengers headquarters, and Nat is kind of
that's right.
She's kind of like running the show, so to
she's
speak.
Like the Nick Fury.
She's kind of like she's trying to keep, I guess, the concept of S.H.I.E.L.D. She's talking to Carol Danvers, who's way out in space somewhere doing what she's doing.
With a new hairdo and costume. It looks
that looks great. You've got War Machine down in Africa. And who else was on that call? Rocket
was on it.
Somebody else.
And what's her name from Black Panther?
The leader of the
Guerrera, whose character name I cannot remember.
Yeah. But so they're all just sort of checking in, and it seems like basically everybody's like doing this just to humor Nat.
Basically,
honestly,
yeah.
Like it felt like they were just doing it because they knew that it gave Nat purpose, which was nice.
Yeah.
And then Captain America shows up. They banter a little bit. It's cute. And then the next big thing that sort of pushes the plot forward is Ant-Man shows up.
Yes. So Ant-Man shows up. Yeah. So Ant-Man, like all of Scott's stuff has been put in storage, but the portal to the quantum realm was in the back of his van at the end of Ant-Man when he got trapped in the quantum realm. It gets reactivated by a rat and pops him out back into the world.
Yep.
He shows up at Avengers HQ and lets Nat and Steve know that, well, this quantum realm exists. And it's timey-wimey, and he's been in the quantum realm from his perspective for 5 hours, and it has been 5 years in the real world, and he is convinced that they can use it to manipulate time in such a way as they can send themselves, like, navigate through it and send themselves back in time to a point when the Infinity Stones still exist. So they go to Tony's house.
Yep.
And in the time since Infinity War, Tony has married Pepper, and they've had a child. And so he is not...
an adorable child.
Yes. They cast that kid really well.
I mean, they cast the one of the top comments on the Marvel Studios subreddit this morning was saying, can we all just like collectively agree that the casting director, and I can't remember what her name was, but like one of the unsung heroes of the MCU, because she's literally cast all of the movies, and they would not be anywhere near as good as they are without her expertise, because good Lord, every casting decision has been amazing in these movies. So anyways.
So he's got a family now, and so he's not too keen on the idea of trying to undo the snap, because all of this came together for him in the events following the snap, and he doesn't want to risk it. So the Avengers all head off. They go find Bruce as another like scientist who can help them figure out how to do this. And meanwhile, Tony ends up sort of like, now they've planted the seed in his head. And so he ends up starting to workshop getting time travel working in his spare time, even though he said he wasn't going to do it. So they go find Bruce. Bruce has tamed the Hulk and is now just in Hulk form all the time.
Does that have a proper name in the comics?
I don't think
I just always
so.
like I've
He's
always
Smart
just,
Hulk.
It's just Smart Hulk.
Yeah.
So he's melded the two together to get the best of both worlds, which is cool.
Great.
I like definitely one of my small nitpicks was just the fact that they kind of glossed. They were just like, no, we gotta get into this.
Yeah.
So you just need to all accept that he's Smart Hulk now.
They gave you a line.
They gave you a line. Yeah.
It's like, I spent
exactly.
18 months in the gamma radiation lab working to
Yeah.
like, okay, sure, whatever.
Whatever.
Like it's great. It was very. I liked Smart Hulk a lot.
Yeah,
it was great.
No, it was a good addition, and like well deserved by Ruffalo, who does not like. He's so good in these movies, and he's terrible at obviously keeping secrets, but at the same time, he's wonderful, and I'm glad that they gave him a lot to do.
Yeah, it did give me one of my favorite scenes in the movie later on too, which is the like, don't maybe smash a bit while you're at it. And it's like, it feels pretty gratuitous, but fine. Tears his shirt off and he like goes and smashes a car. He's like, that scene, I loved it. So anyhow, Bruce agrees to help them, and so he starts building tech in the Avengers lab to try and send people back in time. In the meantime, Nat goes and finds Clint, who has at this point stopped being Hawkeye and become Ronin, who is going around sorting people to death. To
be fair, he's never called Ronin.
No, but his action figure is called Ronin.
Okay.
In the context of the like Avengers Endgame toy line.
Yeah.
But anyhow, he's going around just murdering the heck out of organized criminals, basically.
Yep.
So Nat finds him, brings him in, and he ends up volunteering to go on the test run of the time machine that has been built. After like Hulk builds a time machine, they try it.
Works.
It kind of works. It ages and then de-ages Scott Lang a bunch of times. Tony then shows up with his now successful prototype for the time machine, being like, well, who could have told you that time travel was dangerous and that you would be quite likely to to age or de-age somebody. He gives them the time machine. Clint offers to become the test pilot for the test drive of the time machine. They fire it up. It sends him back in time to when he had a family. He almost gets to see his daughter and then gets yanked back to the present, and they determine that it works. So now they hatch a plan. They have only enough Pym particles to operate the time machine to send out everybody wants
return
and give them a return trip.
Yeah.
So they start thinking about what their strategy is, and they realize that if you go to the right year, 3 of the Infinity Stones are in New York at the same time.
Yeah.
There are 2 in space that can be sort of like gotten within realm of one another, and there's one on Asgard. Yeah. So they split the team into 3 parties. Cap and Hulk and Iron Man go to New York. Nat and Clint and Nebula and Thor.
Or no, sorry. Nat and Clint go to Vormir.
Yeah, Nat and Clint go to Vormir, but they all go as a group of 4 because they split that party.
They split from Rhodey and Nebula, who go to Morag.
That's right. Rhodey and Nebula go to Morag.
Yeah.
Clint and Nat go to Vormir. Hulk, Iron Man, and Cap go to New York.
Thor and Rocket go to
go to
almost said
Asgard.
I almost said Isengard, but that's a different movie.
So we get to New York, and we arrive in New York in 2012, right at the height of the Battle of New York, which, if you go back, way back to our like speculative talk about this movie from like a year and a half ago, when we talked about like murmurs from the production, and they had Chris Evans back in the Cap costume from the original Avengers in New York.
Yep.
100%. They go back, and that is a really fun scene, or series of scenes. So, Cap goes to get the scepter, the Mind Stone. So he goes and basically tries to like infiltrate the the wrap up at Avengers Tower after the events of the battle. Hulk goes to Bleecker Street, 221 Bleecker Street, to get the Time Stone from the Sorcerer Supreme. And Hulk, no, that was Hulk, and Iron Man goes to try and retrieve the Tesseract from the top of Avengers Tower.
Yeah.
Top of Avengers Tower?
Well,
top of Avengers Tower.
Sort of the same, like, there were two in the tower.
Yes, because there's the Mind Stone and the Tesseract at the same time. So, Iron Man goes to get the Tesseract. He manages to, like, they watch it go into the briefcase. It gets taken by Tony down to the ground floor. They send Hulk down the stairs. This backfires when Tony on the ground floor goes to try and like pull a heist to get the Tesseract, and the Hulk busts open the door, basically knocks Tony out, and the Tesseract remains in government custody. Cap goes to try and do the cleanup, and all of our favorite S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. Sorry, did I say S.H.I.E.L.D.? All of our favorite Hydra agents appear.
Yeah.
We've got Mark Grillo. We've got Agent, what's his name? From Winter Soldier.
The Rumlow?
But no. So we got Rumlow.
Yeah. And we got
like,
Sitwell.
Is Sitwell was the one I was
talking
about. Yeah. So Sitwell shows up. Rumlow shows up.
Also, I think you said that the Tesseract stays in government.
It does.
It doesn't. Loki takes it.
Oh, that's right. Loki takes it.
Yeah.
That's right. Loki takes it. Loki sees it skitter across the floor.
One of the very interesting setups that has no payoff in this movie.
Yeah.
But presumably we'll find something down the line.
Loki takes it and just creates a portal and leaves. Right. I was thinking they'd realize this.
And then they have to.
So anyhow, Cap gets on the elevator that they're all on as they're carrying the scepter, and they restage the elevator scene from Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant. Like the shooting of it is similar, and like all the same movements as like the guys in the elevator start reaching for their weapons. And they get all the way up to the point where you expect Cap to be like, all right, so before we start, does anyone get off? But instead he leans over to Sitwell and says, "Hail Hydra."
Yeah,
and they just give him the briefcase.
That was really good.
Oh man, it's excellent. So he gets the scepter.
Yep.
Ant-Man came with them as well.
Yes, Ant-Man was there.
To New York.
Yeah.
Hulk goes and meets the Sorcerer Supreme, who at this point is the Ancient One, played by Tilda Swinton.
Great cameo.
And they have a conversation about whether or not she can trust him with it, and he lets on that Doctor Strange gave Thanos the Time Stone willingly, at which point she realizes, oh, he had to have a reason to do that.
Yeah.
I need to give you this stone. So Hulk does get the Time Stone.
Yep.
So they go back to meet up. They reconvene. They give the scepter to Ant-Man.
Yeah.
What happens to the Time Stone?
So Ant-Man. So it's just assumed that Hulk and Ant-Man are left with the 2 stones.
Oh, right, but we don't see Hulk.
Yeah,
in
we
that
don't really.
scene.
Yeah,
Okay,
Hulk, you only see Hulk again in the Time Stone again when they all
when
get
they come back.
to current time.
That's right.
At this point, Cap and Iron Man realize that okay, now we need a new way to get the Tesseract, so they figure out a good time to go to Shield, which is 1970.
Yes.
Where everybody is all working under Shield. Howard Stark, Pym, and Agent Carter.
Yeah.
So they're all there. So they go there because they know that not only can they get the Tesseract, but they can get more Pym's particles because they need them.
Yes.
Because to jump to the 1970s required what should have been their return trip.
That's right.
So they go back to 1970s
to come back.
Yeah. So they successfully go do that. Iron Man has a very lovely, really great couple scenes with his dad.
Yeah.
Which was really good. You get the Captain gets a glimpse of Carter, which is really great. But in the end, that mission to get those 3 stones is successful.
Yes. So they get their stones.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Rhodey and Rhodey and Nebula.
Yeah.
They go to Morag right at the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy to go get the Power Stone.
Yeah.
And their mission seems to be pretty successful. They walk into they knock out Peter Quill. They walk into the vault, and Nebula, being mostly cybernetic, is able to just reach through the defense mechanism and pull the Power Stone out of the little like pedestal it's on.
Yeah.
And they prepare to head back. Rhodey has the Power Stone in hand. They prepare to head back. He goes to hit his little transponder to send them home, and Nebula stops. And the reason she stops is because younger Nebula also exists in this time, and being a cybernetic organism, she apparently operates on some sort of like networked intelligence
thing. They're like Borg.
They're like Borg. Yeah, they don't really explain it. It's
No.
fine. It works for the purposes that they need it to in the movie. So other Nebula is experiencing the memories of future Nebula. This leads to her like R2-D2 projecting the presence of the Power Stone into a room that Thanos is standing in at the time. And so Thanos extracts the memories to learn of her location and goes and retrieves future Nebula, which gives him basically unrestricted access to all of the information about what is yet to come. So he learns where all the stones are. He learns all of the events that are to unfold in Infinity War. He learns that Nebula betrays him, and things start to look real bad as past Thanos now is able to start formulating a plan to undo the undoing of his undoing.
Yeah.
So that doesn't go so well. Meanwhile, on Asgard, Thor and Rocket are on Asgard during the events of Thor 2. They are trying to get the ether out of Natalie Portman, who's Jane Foster. And Thor is not handling it very well because this is the day his mother died, and that like a whole bunch of stuff went really badly for him. So he's
just also in a bad state.
He's
from
in a bad
literally
state.
Everything else that's happened.
Like everything else that's happened to him. He's grieving.
Yeah.
Not in the healthiest way. And not handling it very well. So anyhow, he ends up having a nice moment with his mother on Asgard, where he gets to reconnect with his mom, who has, of course, been dead now for 5 or so years. And in the meantime, Rocket goes and retrieves the ether from Jane, and they book it out of Asgard back to Earth. So they're successful. Then on Vormir, Nat and Kate hike up the mountain. They meet the Red Skull. They get to the top, and they come to the realization that they have a problem. In much the same way as Thanos had to pitch Gamora off the mountain in order to claim the Soul Stone, they are being required to make a sacrifice too. And so they sit around and think about it and argue about it, and are not in a rush to sacrifice one or the other of them to get the Soul Stone. But they do ultimately come to the realization that, Thanos showed up with his daughter and left without, but had the Soul Stone in hand, and the Red Skull is not lying to them. So then they both basically volunteer to be the sacrifice, and then can't decide which one of them wants to be the person sacrificed, and so basically both of them try to throw themselves off the cliff. Ultimately, Nat manages to win, for some definition of winning, by like Clint leaps off and she leaps off after him and manages to like grappling hook him to a wall. He tries to grab her to stop her from dying, but is unable to hold on, and she pushes off the wall and sacrifices herself so that Clint gets the Soul Stone.
Yeah.
So Clint wakes up, much like Thanos did, in the pool of water with the Soul Stone in hand, and he heads back to the modern time. So at this point, I think that's all of them.
Yep.
We got 3 from New York, 1 from Asgard, 2 from space.
Yep.
So they all poof back into existence in the present. Also, Soul Stones in hand. Everybody looks at Clint, who sort of collapses onto the floor, says, "Where's Nat?" Clint is obviously not in a good place. Everybody realizes what that means. Thor punches the ground. And Nat is no more. So, now they have all the Soul Stones.
Yep. So they make a fancy new Infinity
There's
Gauntlet.
only 2 hours of this movie left.
This
is like 2/3 of the way through.
This is probably, about 2/3 of the way through, because the last hour is a lot. So
yes,
they craft a new Infinity Gauntlet, which apparently you can just do.
Yeah, using Iron Man's
which
armor.
was a little okay, but whatever.
It works.
You got to move the plot forward.
You work with what you got.
Yeah. It's
in
just
the words
like
of the immortal James Rhodes.
Before they had to go and have this made by the dwarves by Heart of a Dying Star, but Tony can just make whatever. It's fine. Anyway, so they make this. They make it. They argue who's going to wear it. Finally, it comes down to the Hulk saying he's the only one strong enough to be able to resist, to be able to do it.
Because the energy pulse is primarily gamma radiation,
yeah,
and he is a gamma beast.
Yeah. So puts on the glove, snaps the fingers, and it works.
Yeah.
It works.
It works.
It worked very well.
What they don't know at this point, though,
Yep.
is that Nebula has traded places with
good Nebula.
With good
evil
Nebula.
Evil
Nebula has traded places with good Nebula.
Yeah.
And she has come forward in time in place of good Nebula.
Yep.
She has brought.
So she brings.
She has brought Thanos and his entire army into the future.
Yep.
So the Hulk snaps. It works. There are birds in the trees outside.
Yeah.
And
Hawkeye's wife gives him a call.
Hawkeye's wife calls him up,
which is impressive because presumably that number would have been discontinued. Because
you would think so, but
I guess maybe he kept up with the cell phone payments.
Who knows?
I'm just saying.
It's like we have no idea where Clint is, and we have no way to contact him. Have you tried calling him?
Yeah.
No. So anyhow, everything's gonna be fine. Everybody's alive again.
And then
as
kaboom.
Avengers base is like
it's decimated.
It is extremely blown up by an orbital bombardment from Thanos' ship.
Yeah.
So this is bad. Avengers HQ gets blown up. The Avengers are all scattered. Rocket and Rhodey and is there one other down there? Rocket and Rhodey are at the Hulk. The Hulk. That's right.
He's one
are in the basement, and the basement is flooding from the lake next to the base, and they're all trapped. So they're stuck. Clint wakes up and discovers that he's near the Infinity Gauntlet, but he's then given chase by a whole bunch of Chitauri warriors who have started to infiltrate the base. Cap and Thor and Iron Man stand off up top against Thanos and basically have the floor wiped with their faces again.
Yep.
As Thanos just throws down. Who else am I missing at this point?
Oh, who knows? There's too many people.
There's
at this point.
there's a bunch of different things going on.
We spent about a half an hour in a big fight at this, point. Really,
things just basically escalate from there.
Yeah.
So while the original three are holding their own against Thanos just to sort of keep him busy, the rest of the team they rescue each other to get the folks that are drowning out of the basement, and they as things are starting to look extremely bleak, they come to the defense of the three who are up top, and then some more things happen, and then all the people they've brought back start to appear as Doctor Strange starts bringing them friends.
So as it starts to look pretty bad, Thanos goes on about how he's going to, he's never taken pleasure from everything that he's ever done. He does it for the sake of balance. But in this instance, wiping out your terrible little planet is going to be fun. And then that's when you get this massive army, this great shot of Captain America literally standing there alone facing the entire Thanos army. And then that's when everybody else starts showing up. Everybody.
All the
portals start appearing, and literally everybody who hasn't been around yet shows up. I mean, obviously there's a bunch of people very minor characters who don't play a role, but basically all the big ones do.
Basically every hero. It's amazing how many people show up. People you don't expect to show up. You've got you've got Wong and Doctor Strange and and then all of their sorcerers in training show up.
Yep.
You have Black Panther and Shuri and why can I not remember her name? The lead bodyguard lady.
Yeah, I know.
They show up along with all of the armies from Wakanda. As well as aircraft and fighters and the whole bit.
Yep. Valkyrie shows up.
With Asgardian warriors.
With Asgardian warriors.
While riding Pegasus. Yeah. Spider-Man shows up.
All the Guardians come back.
Guardians of the Galaxy come back.
Basically just everybody.
Everybody, including Pepper Potts.
Yep.
In her rescue outfit. Which they nod to at the beginning, but her showing up and actually getting to be rescue in this movie is awesome. And basically everyone from every movie to this point shows up for one big final throwdown battle, at which point Wong shouts to one of the guys next to him is is this everyone? What, you wanted more? And then the big fight happens, and in that fight there is so much fan service.
Oh, it's absurd.
It's absurd.
It is the largest circle jerk of a movie I've ever seen at that point, but it works so well.
I feel fully serviced.
Oh, yeah, no. 100%. I mean, the big moment that just got everybody in the theater going, and from everything I've read this morning, reading about the same, is when Cap takes the hammer.
Yeah. Cap gets the hammer and gets to fight with... Hammer and shield.
Hammer and shield, and it was real good.
Yeah. That's great. There's a great A-Force moment where all the female heroes show up to give to support to help Spider-Man and then support Carol. Everything in this movie is awesome.
Yeah.
Everything in this fight scene is awesome. There is no moment of this fight scene that is not just rad. So they at this point the gist of this battle is who's going to end up with the new Infinity Gauntlet, because Thanos is trying to get it to eradicate Earth. The Avengers are trying to keep it away from him, and so it toodles around the battlefield for a while. They play a game of keep away with it while this whole war is happening, and ultimately Thanos does get his hands on it.
Yeah.
And he puts it on. And as he's going to do the snap, he gets into a one-on-one fight with Iron Man. Iron Man manages to sort of hold him off for a minute before being knocked away. And Thanos is all right, your time, so much for Earth. Time's up. And snaps, and nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the fight between Iron Man and Thanos, Iron Man pulled all the Infinity Gems off his gauntlet and into his suit. And Tony turns around Yeah, so Thanos says, "I am inevitable," and snaps. Tony looks him in the eye, shows him the Infinity Gems, and says, "I am Iron Man," and snaps, and wipes out Thanos and his entire army in one go.
Yeah.
Thereby saving the Earth. But the energy required to do that...
The small downside was...
It was that in doing so, he sacrifices his life to save the world.
Yep.
And everything after that is basically epilogue to the events of the film. We go to
possibly more endings than Lord of the Rings.
Possibly more endings. Well, they had a lot of
there were a lot
to tie up.
There was a lot of places not since Lord of the Rings have I felt like, oh, that's the end. Oh nope, they're gonna keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, here. Oh
no.
We're gonna do another one. Okay. Nope. Okay. Wow. All right. Cool. Anyways.
Yeah. So we go to Tony's funeral. We see all the characters that he's interacted with, standing there, paying their respects, including the kid from Iron Man 3.
Yeah, if you missed that,
that is
there was definitely a lot of people I saw being like, who was that? Why was there just some random kid there? Yeah, that is the kid from
Iron Man 3.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to remember what his name was.
Oh.
Shoot, I don't remember what. Can't remember what his name was. Anyways.
Yeah. So we go to the funeral. Then we still have one last thing to tie up, which is that they have removed all these Infinity Stones from time. They have to put all the Infinity Stones back in time.
Yeah.
And so they have to send them back to where they were when they got them. So Cap has nominated himself for this mission, and Sam and Bucky are standing there at the platform when he's about to go, and wishing him well. And Bruce is operating the machine. Cap gets vooped into past. They're like, it'll take as long as Cap needs, but it'll only be 10 seconds here. And so 10 seconds pass, and then they bring him back, and he doesn't appear. And Bruce is trying to figure it out. He's like, oh, he shot right past his timestamp. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. And then Bucky sees
a man
sitting at a bench over there. And they turn around and walk over. And lo and behold, it's Captain America. Steve Rogers, obviously in like his 80s or 90s at this point, sitting there, having now lived an entire life in history. And so he sits there, and Bucky and Sam walk up, and Bucky says, well, go ahead. So Sam steps up and says hi. They talk it through, and at this point, Sam says, the only thing I can't imagine is living in a world without Captain America. At which point, Steve bends over, pulls out the shield, hands it to Sam, and says, you don't have to. And passes the shield on to Sam in what is probably, again, one of my favorite moments in the film, because I have been wanting them to make that choice for years now.
I mean, certainly the obvious choice was always Bucky.
Well, yeah.
Right? I mean, that was the obvious choice.
But Sam was the better choice.
Yeah, no, I agree, 100%.
So I am, and they staged that scene so that right up until that point, basically, it could have gone either way.
I mean, I love the fact in that scene that Bucky said, you go.
Yeah.
It's okay. You go talk to him first.
Yeah. So anyhow, Sam is like, I'll do my best. And Steve says, and that's why you're the right guy for the job, basically. Yeah. And then Sam asks, so when he receives the shield, he sees that there's a wedding ring on Steve's finger, and he asks, do you want to tell me about her? And he says, no,
not really.
I don't think I do. And then we fade back into the past, and back to the 1950s, I guess it is.
I would assume it would be just
after the war, probably.
He died.
Yeah. And we see Steve and Peggy sharing a dance in the living room of their home, and they kiss, and the movie ends. And it's a good ending.
It's a very good ending, and then cool credits.
Yeah.
All right, well, that took longer than 45 seconds.
That took almost as long as the runtime of the film.
Almost as long time as the film. That's fine. I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there was zero chance of us not liking this movie. I had to laugh when I tweeted last night. After the movie, I just tweeted Jesus. And more than several people reply being like, good or bad? And I'm like, have you just not been paying attention to how I talk about these movies for the last, especially year and a half since we've been doing this podcast, for sure? Of course it's good. It was amazing. Oh my God. It was everything that it needed to be. It was so much fun, and it was so sweet, and it was sad, and it was perfect. It was
I experienced every feeling.
Yeah, every feeling. And like the things that they just, all the little nods and callbacks and cameos, and like there were so many of them. And like honestly, like I don't know how deep I can even get into it, right? Like I honestly think what I want to do is like in like a few weeks after I've had a chance to see this movie a few more times is record another one of these just to go over all the little bits, because like some of them I just can't even remember now.
Yeah.
Like there were, like I mentioned during the recap, that one of my favorite things was Cap running that program at the beginning. I thought that was amazing. Just all the people that they managed to bring back was really cool.
Robert Redford.
Yeah, they got Robert Redford
back.
He retired, didn't he? Like he like quit acting. I think he's kind of backpedaled on it, but like, man, how crazy big do you need to be? I guess you need to be Marvel Disney big to be able to be like, yo, Robert, we need you for like a day and a half.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay.
Like, I assume that the footage that they used of Natalie Portman
that was from
constructed or unused takes.
Unused takes from, but she was at the premiere.
Yeah.
She was there.
Well, that's good.
So like from everything I've heard, there is definitely, some bad blood there. Maybe not quite as bad as
Red Skull. What's his name?
No, he didn't. There was no bad blood there. He just didn't want to do blockbusters anymore.
Oh, okay.
What I was going to say is the guy who played Rhodey in the first one.
Oh.
Terrence Howard?
Terrence Howard.
Yeah. Definitely some bad blood there. So I doubt he was at the premiere. But, apparently Natalie Portman was there, which is cool. I guess, like, so we discussed, just like, so we're not rambling for another half an hour. We thought it would be fun to just sort of talk about the original six, because that's who this movie was about. Mm-hmm. Really, at the core, it was about, the original six. And there was some definitely supporting characters there, but like, it's about going back and figuring all this out. So, I don't know, let's start with the Hulk. Again, I mentioned it was a little weird that just they had to kind of like quickly go into Smart Hulk. But I love the progression of the Hulk over all these movies.
Yeah.
Like going from, angry to kind of controlly angry to whatever the heck Ragnarok Hulk was, just like that one step away from Smart Hulk, I guess, to like proper smart, letting Mark Ruffalo be Mark Ruffalo, but still being the Hulk was amazing. You mentioned that the scene during when they go back to New York and Cap maybe suggests that, maybe you smash some stuff on your way to Bleecker Street, and he's just like, it seems a little gratuitous, which is like, has to be just a line that the movie in general, because that's all this movie was just complete gratuitous fan service.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. He certainly, I don't think, has had quite the same level of character progression over the years as, say, Iron Man or Thor or Cap has.
No, but by nature of not having his own movies in this franchise, that's
certainly not since the first one
with Edward Norton.
With Edward Norton, and like the one movie in the entire MCU that doesn't really feel like an MCU film. It is hard, and I agree. Although, to be honest, like neither has Hawkeye or Black Widow, and I would still put them above Bruce when it comes to really interesting character progression. I still love the Hulk, and I think we're going to continue to see the Hulk. Like, I don't think Ruffalo's going anywhere.
He might be sidelined.
Yeah, I could see him.
Given the injury he sustains at the end of the film.
Sure.
They may sideline him as like the new sort of leader of the Avengers for the time being.
Yeah.
Or the guy in the chair.
Yeah. But yeah, so Hulk was great.
Hulk was great.
Nat and Hawkeye. One of the things that I actually kind of, it's not that I didn't like it. It's that it seemed kind of silly. They knew going to Vormir that a price had to be paid, right? They didn't go there knowing, like, they knew that Thanos went there with Gamora and didn't come back with Gamora before they went.
Yeah.
So I don't really know how else you do that scene without doing it the way that they did it. But it did bug me a little bit that they got there and went, oh, right, one of us has to not come back.
Yeah.
Because, like, you kind of knew that something, like, they kind of knew something like that was going to have to happen.
Yeah, I mean, so my assumption is just, like, levels of information available to the team, right? Because they knew that Thanos went with Gamora and came back without Gamora, but they didn't know any of the circumstances of that. So they wouldn't have known that he sacrificed Gamora. They might have thought that he just killed her.
Sure.
And like he got what he needed from her in terms of the information he needed to get the Soul Stone and just did away with her, right? And Nebula didn't know anything other than it was on the planet and like these were the things that happened. And so yeah, like it makes a little bit of sense.
It's a little nitpicky. Like
it is.
I completely understand that what I'm sort of complaining about here is pretty nitpicky. Yeah, I love that scene.
By the same token, let's send the two normal humans to a space planet.
Yeah.
Let's send the two normal humans who are very close friends to the space planet where a super-powered space alien that wipes the floor with the Avengers wasn't able to return from unscathed.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. That being said, it was a great scene. I don't know where the line was set for character deaths in this film. I would not have put money on Nat dying.
Yeah.
I did not expect that at all.
No, neither did I.
I assumed going in that we were going to lose Tony. It made sense.
It does.
From not only a reality, us in, Robert Downey Jr. in a reality standpoint, but also just like as a character thing. And we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But,
well, and as a like moving the MCU on, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
The MCU started with Tony. It ends with Tony's death. This arc,
but
right? This period
era.
in the MCU is brought to an end with the departure of Robert Downey Jr.
Yep.
So that makes sense. But yeah, I didn't predict that Nat was either.
I love the scene. I love the tussle, the fight between them to get to the cliff. It was very reminiscent of Civil War with them sparring on the tarmac. I thought that was great. And it was super sad. And I didn't expect it, but it was good, and it was a really great. I mean, it made sense. Like going in, you knew that when those two were assigned to go there, that one of them wasn't going to come back. And when I realized that that's what they were doing, I assumed it was going to be Nat. Again, it made sense for that character to, finally know exactly what she's supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
because that's something she's always battled with, is just sort of never knowing, where she's supposed to be or who she's supposed to be or what she's supposed to be doing. Whereas, Hawkeye has a family and a wife
and retired
and three kids and retired.
Was a chance for him to finally live out his sort of like the rest of his life.
Yeah. So that was great. I love that. Thor was another really great one. I liked the fact that we finally see Thor. We kind of glossed over this during the recap, but like when they go to get Thor after that 5-year jump, he's now living in a secluded life in New Asgard, which it didn't really sort of say where it was, but
it was in Norway.
It
probably
felt somewhere.
The name.
Oh
of
yeah,
because
it had the translation.
Name.
Yeah, you're right.
But they had made New Asgard.
New Asgard.
Like, welcome to New Asgard. Please drive slowly.
Yeah, which was great. but he's let himself go. He's grown his hair back out. He has this big, giant, unkept beard. He's got fat, which was pretty funny. And I'm sure that he probably enjoyed, that wasn't real. I guarantee you that was all prosthetics, but I guarantee you he loved every minute of it. It looked like a lot of fun. And he's just just everything. It's not just that he failed with Thanos. It's that he in his mind has failed so many times.
And so completely.
And all of the people that he, turned to for guidance are gone. And that's something, he always turned to people for guidance, right? Like he never quite knew what he was supposed to be doing. He always looked to Odin or his mother or even like Rocket for guidance. And all of these people were basically gone or in case of Rocket, he wasn't gone, but just
unavailable.
And he just sort of shut himself away.
Playing Fortnite with Krog and Meek.
Damn Fortnite. So I thought that was great, and I'm glad that it wasn't, because I could have easily seen them being like, he snaps out of it like real quickly, like he realizes the situation that they're in quickly, snaps his fingers, all the fat magically goes away.
Yeah.
His hair looks great. His beard is good. He's got the Stormbreaker again. And they didn't do that, which I thought was fantastic.
They did a little bit. They did only just so far as like when he all right, it's time for the fight, and he lightnings up, and his armor comes on, and his hair, like his beard braids itself,
and his hair looks better. Yeah.
But it doesn't. It's not like a total cleanup.
No,
right?
but
like it's
but what I guess what I was more leading towards there was that took time.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
and he did take him. He had to get to that point.
He had to get to that point, and he goes back to Asgard and can barely keep it together, and he gets to talk to his mom, and I love that scene because she's like, "Oh, honey, I know. Like, don't worry about it. Like, you're obviously not from this time. We can chat. It's okay." Which I thought was great. So loved what they did with Thor. Captain America, I really like. I mean, he's a pretty simple guy, right? Like, he's always been a pretty, I don't know.
Do the right thing no matter what.
Do the right thing no matter what. Always put others in front of yourself. And he had done that for forever. Until the very end, when he's like, you know what? No, I'm good.
Yeah.
The rest of you are all good now, so I'm going to do something for myself, which I thought was great.
Yeah, and it was from his character journey point of view, a really satisfying end to that story, where it's like, okay, I have saved the world. I have prevented the biggest, I've remedied the biggest danger that Earth has ever faced. And there are now enough heroes on Earth that I don't have to worry about it anymore. And now I can have some peace. Because he was like, being out of time, he was never going to be able to find peace, because as much as he was telling everybody, it's like, you need to let it go, you need to move on, he was never able to do that. And so being given a second chance to have the life that he didn't get to have allows him to, and being able then to let go and move on of his duty to save the world instead and just let himself have peace is a great, like, that is the perfect ending for Captain America.
No, like, I could not have thought of a better ending.
Yeah, like if it had been Cap that sacrificed himself at the end of the movie, it would not have felt as good, because that's what you expect him to do.
I said that in the last podcast. I said if I don't expect, like, I specifically didn't say Iron Man in the last episode because that's what I figured would happen.
Right.
And I didn't want to really allude to that. But yeah, Iron Man doing it made sense. Cap doing it didn't. But also then turning around and giving Cap literally the best ending that you could give him was so good. It felt so good. And just everything, the lead up to the end fight, and him, wielding Meow Meow, and it was really good. I really liked everything they did with Cap in this movie. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And then that brings us to Iron Man, who, I mean, has been at the forefront of this universe since 2008. Probably a big reason why we're here today. Like, you know, that movie, you know, Iron Man in 2008 could have failed, and it didn't, on the back of some pretty amazing directing, but also Robert Downey Jr. doing a phenomenal job with that character. And seeing his progression over the course of, how many movies has he been in now? 3 Iron Mans, 3 Avengers, 4 Avengers now. Spider-Man,
Incredible
Hulk, Captain America.
Was he?
He was in
America?
He was in Civil War.
That's right.
Like, he's been in more of these movies than anybody else. And every single time he comes back, something new happens to push his character forward. And what I really liked about this movie was it would have been pretty easy to sort of give him the short end of the stick, but he kind of he started the movie with his happy ending.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool. Like, he got to experience that. It's not like he got robbed of that. He got robbed of being able to continue it, but he had it, which was really fantastic. They also gave him that great moment with his father, which was fantastic.
Yep. When
he goes back to the 70s and talks to him, and
they get to have a conversation about being parents,
about being a dad,
and he gets to tell give his dad advice about being a parent, which is like, that is a great scene.
Super great scene.
I really liked what they did with Iron Man here as well, because it is the culmination of his character arc across all these movies, right? Yeah. Like, letting him die at the end of this film, letting him make that sacrifice at the end of this film, is the completion of his transition from self-absorbed, playboy in the first one, to someone who is finally, like, not just willing, but actually does make that self-sacrifice move to preserve, like, his family and his friends and the world and
the universe
and like, he finally becomes the person that he was sort of moving all the way towards throughout all these movies and his appearances in them. And it's like, it is the perfect end for his character as well. It's not the happy end, but it is the, like, it's not even a, like, it's sad in that, like, we don't get to see more of him, but it's like, it's a triumphant sacrifice.
Yeah.
And so it's, like, bittersweet.
Yes. Bittersweet is a very good definition. I mean, yeah, a lot of people are going to be bummed that we're losing Iron Man. More into the real world, people are going to be more bummed that we're losing Robert Downey Jr. in these movies.
Yeah.
But it's unrealistic to expect that he A, can, or B, wants to continue to do these movies forever. And that's obviously the same for Captain America and Chris Evans.
Yeah.
What I didn't know, actually, until last night, was I didn't actually realize quite how into it Hemsworth is. Apparently he's just like, yeah, I'll just keep doing these as long as you want to keep putting me in them. And they very clearly set that up near towards the 6th or 7th end of this film with the scene with the Guardians, when he's like, so he makes Valkyrie the leader of Asgard.
Yep.
And then he takes off and joins the Guardians to go on adventures with them. So, okay, so Thor's going to be in Guardians 3, which I am super in for.
Yep.
That sounds awesome. So, I don't know. Like, the movie was phenomenal. I'm really excited for the future. I think I would be less sad and empty feeling if I knew more what that future was.
Yeah.
I know we get Spider-Man in a few months, and I know that there has to be something. You can't just go, like, this is going to have ramifications for I want this, I should say, to have ramifications for the MCU for a very long time to come.
Yeah. So they never resolve the 5-year gap, right? Like, we know, so that they do a scene where, like, Peter finds Ned as he goes back to school,
Yeah.
right? So we assume that Ned got poofed.
Yeah.
Because we never see that. But there's going to be like this weird, and it sort of comes out as they visit all the different endings of the movie, that there are these weird time discontinuities in terms of like people who survived and people who didn't, because the people who didn't survive the snap are now 5 years displaced in time. So like Scott's family, Scott's daughter Cassie is now like a teenager.
Yep.
But Pete and Ned are both still the same age, and presumably because of all the characters we've seen in the trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home, like Pete got really unlucky in terms of all of his friends also getting poofed, because all of his friends from his class in Homecoming are still the same age in Far From Home.
It's really weird because they definitely, at some point, I would have to imagine they were like, man, are we sure we want to do the whole time travel thing? Because this is going to mess a lot of things up.
Yeah. Because, like, I don't know. Maybe they will address it in Far From Home. But
I think they kind of have to.
Is Europe going to be all run down? Or does the world just spring back to life in 6 months?
Because that's the thing, right? Is that, like, from everything I've heard and from what they've said, Far From Home takes place basically directly after the events of Endgame. And it's just like, so wait, like, everybody just gets snapped back into existence, and within even like a few months a high school is planning a trip to Europe? Like, what?
Yeah.
Nobody, that's not gonna happen. Like, it wasn't ever really established. It's like, yeah, like they did all these great, I mean, there weren't a lot of establishing shots, but there were a lot of like, here's what the world looks like now 5 years later, and they never really established if that snap did anything other than just bring everybody back, or if it did it actually like reset everything, because that's the weird choice they made, right? Is that normally, and they talk about it a lot, and they kind of poo-poo on all the time travel movies that we know and love, right?
Which was great
by saying like, no, that's not how time travel works. That's not how this is going to work. It's not like they went back in time and stopped everything from happening. They just kind of brought everybody back at the 5-year mark. And it's just like, okay, like I feel like we could have an entire movie dedicated to what that's like.
Yeah. Like, just how do people relate to each other if they're now 5 years apart?
Yeah.
And how does any relationship not happen, but what are the effects on any relationship where one person is presumed dead for 5 years and then comes back having not aged a day?
Yeah.
Right? Now do that for half the population of the planet.
Yeah. That's going to mess some things up.
That's going to mess some stuff up. Yeah. So I have a suspicion that they're going to do what they have already done in some cases and just kind of gloss over it, where like Far From Home, all of Peter's class died. They all got ghosted, and so they're all still teenagers. And like, it's 6 months later, and Europe has been rebuilt, and we can go to Venice, and there are Venetians here, and the city has not sunk into the sea over the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Or over the last 5 years. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of like,
deal with it. Just, we got to move on.
We need to move on.
I mean, and that's the thing, and that's what I was, before we got into this is the reason why I woke up this morning being like, oh, this is like all over. That's weird. But it's not. It's just this part of it's over.
Mm-hmm.
But for so long, we've known so much, and now we know so little.
Yeah.
That it's just like what is next? And they're talking about how Spider-Man is sort of the official ending to Phase 4. So what is that going to look like? And what is Phase?
And who knows? Maybe the
3,
answer is that Spider-Man does address this.
Yeah.
Right? Like, maybe they actually do at least draw reference to the fact that the world is in like a rebuilding phase.
Yeah.
And like the high school, well, I mean, they still had half the body of students, so they've still been carrying on.
Yeah.
And now everybody's back, and they're just trying to reestablish normality by doing normal high school things.
Yep.
And that like maybe they will, because that would at least justify it still being like, this is the epilogue to this phase.
Yep.
But yeah, I assume they're just moving on.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think of things that I hope don't change dramatically. Man, I hope that wasn't the Russo brothers' last Marvel movie.
Yeah. I believe they're also on board for doing these as long as they'll have them.
I hope so, because, man, I've loved those guys since their Community days. If you didn't know, and you wonder why you maybe see so many...
Jeong was
yeah,
in this.
If you've ever wondered why you see some random Community people in these movies, it's because the Russo brothers not necessarily got their start, but they directed a bunch of episodes of Community back in the day, and it's one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And they've done 4 of the Marvel movies now, and they're all phenomenal, some of the best ones, and I don't want them to stop, and I hope they don't. I'm very curious to see what. I mean, it would be foolish for us to think that Marvel doesn't have a plan going forward, right? They're not winging this. So I'm curious, what does that plan look like now?
I think we will find out in August.
Yeah.
Because that's when D23 is this year.
Yeah.
And I expect them to lay out at least the next phase.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm really curious, like, is this, like, it obviously this entire thing has been a success.
Yes.
Right? Like, there's no question that this 10-year, 11-year, 22-film thing worked.
Yeah.
It worked very well. It made a lot of people very famous and a lot of money.
Very wealthy.
And it made a lot of people very happy.
Yeah.
So, like, check. Now what I'm curious is if they say, do we run it back? Do we just take what we just did and say, okay, let's try that again?
This time with Doctor Doom.
Do they try to do something a little bit smaller scoped? Is that even something that you even want to consider at this point? Like, it's, you know, it's one of those things where going to a smaller scale thing just doesn't feel great. Well, like, it's not something that I think they're eager to do. Honestly, I compare it to something like even think Desert Bus.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Desert Bus is something that we did once a million years ago, and we joked about it being the annual thing, and then we did it again, and at no point in the 12-year history of that damn charity have we ever thought, let's just take it back to what it was like before. We thought about it, but we've never actually done it.
Let's just do Desert Bus 3 again.
You remember Desert Bus 3? That was easy. Let's do that again.
Yeah.
But we've never done it. And I have to imagine that, you know, they've been thinking and planning for the last few years about what's next. And certainly somebody's been like, could we maybe do like 6 movies that lead up to a really big bad? And I feel like that person either had a piece of paper thrown at them or they got fired.
So in terms of what any given film is going to look like, my expectation is that, like, Thor Ragnarok and Civil War and Winter Soldier to a lesser extent is going to be kind of the template going forward, where it's like you've got a main hero, but we get, like, or Homecoming, like, basically every movie is going to be a team-up movie.
Yes.
But centered on a main character.
Yep.
But then with one of the other heroes in it, right? Yep. Like, that's fine. That gives every movie the feeling of scale and maintains that sort of, like, tied-in feeling of the universe, without them having to build to, like, a huge big bad over multiple arcs all the time. They can just do team-up movies. And they're already, like, they're staging Guardians of the Galaxy as being a team-up movie.
Yep. I mean, they, so with Guardians 3, I mean, they set up Adam years ago, right?
In Guardians 2.
And they, like, every movie has more or less set, like, so they, with Guardians 3, they set up Adam, with Doctor Strange.
They set up Mordo.
Set up Mordo there if they wanted to do something like that. So there's definitely avenues for them to take, for sure. I guess we're gonna have to wait and find out.
But at the moment, we know. I think we have a pretty good idea what the next 5 or 6 movies out of Marvel Studios are going to be, even though they haven't formally announced them. Because we know Black Widow is in development.
Yeah,
which is almost certainly going to be a sequel. Sorry, a prequel.
Yep.
We know that there's they are developing Doctor Strange 2. We know that they are developing the Eternals. We know that they are going to be developing. Well, we know they are developing Black Panther 2.
And I'm just looking this up because I forget. Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi is in development. And there will almost certainly be another Spider-Man after Far From Home.
Yes.
There will be a Captain Marvel 2.
Oh, absolutely. We know that, the Fox thing is almost there.
Yeah, although we don't know anything that in development.
No, but
right?
like that just
these are all things that we know. Like there are scripts floating around at Disney for that are like actively being worked on, and they have like, if not directors, they at least have production teams developing them.
Because the next big thing that like I imagine that they would do, like really big thing, and I think it's probably still a few years off from even necessarily getting going, is X-Men and Avengers.
Yes.
Right? Bringing those two together would be tremendously incredible.
Yeah.
And I think the sort of the logical next thing that works on that scale would get people excited for X-Men again, because that definitely has not been a feeling. Although Logan was great.
And Deadpool.
I'm legit looking forward to Dark Phoenix, but it's been a very long time since the X-Men has sparked joy quite in the same way that it used to.
Yeah.
So it's going to be pretty interesting. So.
Yeah. We know they're going to make another Deadpool movie because they've said as much. Disney is saying like we are going to continue making Deadpool movies and they're going to continue to be R-rated. I will be interested to see what they do with that in terms of how integrated it is.
I think it'll always be kind of. I think the next one will be significantly more. I think in the same way that Deadpool 1 and 2 have been really tongue-in-cheek with X-Men.
Yes.
I could see the next one being very tongue-in-cheek with the MCU,
yes.
but not really an MCU film.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
like I think it's one-way continuity with those, where it's like Deadpool does his own thing in the margins, and they can bring actors from the MCU into Deadpool 3 as cameos. But if they do the like Deadpool thing, it will, in the same way as the X-Men has been, it'll be like secondary characters that don't really have a place in the mainline MCU that are his sort of like bunch of characters. And they will just joke about the MCU from Deadpool's peanut gallery, basically, which I'm fine with. And then in Avengers 8 Endgame again, they will bring Deadpool in for a cameo in the final battle. But I am interested to see how that goes. I want to see them take another crack at Fantastic Four.
Yep.
Because I trust that Disney can do it.
Yep.
Way more than I have ever trusted Fox to be able to do it.
Yep.
I've long said that I think what I would really like them to do with Fantastic Four is a TV series and make it Star Trek.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
The Star Trek family. You just take the Fantastic Four and you send them on missions in cosmic Marvel.
Yep.
And it's like mission of the week, basically, with like a series long plot, but that gives you the opportunity to like develop out Doctor Doom as a villain and like flesh him out.
And certainly, we should probably move on because I think we could talk about the future of the MCU, and especially with Disney Plus and these TV shows that they've been talking about bringing out for the last couple weeks. Like, I will probably only spend today being sad about the MCU, and then very quickly get excited about it again.
I mean, my first tweet out of the movie last night was, "I am very excited about the future of the MCU," and I am.
Yeah.
One last thing before we move on. Also, they had so on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
They have a bunch of series that they're developing.
Yeah.
They have WandaVision, which, if you've seen Endgame, how's that going to work? They have. There's speculated that they're working on a Hawkeye's TV series,
which is easy to do.
Yep. They are working on the Loki TV series, which that is going to follow on from here almost certainly.
Yeah.
They are also rumored to be working on a Sam and Bucky series, which, given the events of Endgame, is like, are we just moving to like Captain America and the Winter Soldier as like a Disney TV series in the vein of like
I'm in.
Defenders, I'm in. Sign me up.
Yep.
I would rather there was another Captain America movie with that dynamic.
I think there could be.
And I think there could be.
Yeah.
But I can understand wanting to give it a rest after like letting Steve go and then taking a break from Captain America movies for a while. But I would feel a little bit let down to pass the shield to Sam and then not let him and Bucky have
that's
a Captain America
That's the
movie.
same thing, because I know that you were talking about after Endgame, you were chatting about A-Force.
Yeah.
And I feel like
Greenlight that movie yesterday.
I love the idea, but I feel kind of shitty that would move forward without Nat. Like,
yeah.
God damn.
But if Black Widow got her own movie, and they do that, I would feel less bad about it.
But you know that we know now, I mean, it's almost essentially confirmed that this Black Widow movie is going to be a prequel. I don't know. It would be kind of like, man, that's like the original badass lady MCU, and like there's all these other amazing women, and man, that shot, like them helping Peter Parker, and like
she has help.
Yeah, just the audience, and luckily the audience was just loud enough to drown out the crybabies that I could hear outside the theater. But it was great.
Our audience cheered. I was really pleased.
Our audience was super into it.
Our audience was super into it, and was like they cheered at every like payoff.
All the
moment.
big ones, especially in the last hour.
Yeah,
like the last hour was like, it was built, it was designed, it was filmed to be cheered at, which is fantastic.
Our audience applauded the "I am Iron Man" line. I think.
Oh yeah,
with the snap.
That was absurd.
It was so good.
It was so good.
But like at least if she got her own movie, I would feel less like she got robbed of the opportunity to do A-Force. Like Captain Marvel as the leader of A-Force,
yes,
and having all the all the female superheroes from sort of every facet of the universe coming together and forming a team.
Yeah,
greenlight that movie, please. I want to watch that.
All right, what are some other things that we haven't mentioned that you really loved?
That I really loved.
Yeah. There were a lot of really great one-liners.
How much time do we have?
Yeah, I'm going to just name literally one-liner, and it might change upon second, third, fourth, and fifth viewing of this movie. But when Cap fights Cap, knocks him out, and then looks at his ass and goes, "That is America's ass." Oh my good lord! It was either between that one was great. That was one of the best one-liners in MCU history by a long shot. Yeah. So I love that. We talked about how I love that they brought back Pierce. I thought that was great. I love that we got back Tilda Swinton as Sorcerer Supreme. I thought that was great. I love that it was like a sizable part too. That's what I really liked about that one. Yeah. Like Robert Redford coming back was just kind of cool. Pierce being there was neat, but it didn't really actually mean anything to the story. It was just kind of cool to be like, oh, hey, that guy was there right after New York. That makes sense. But to have that the conversation that they had between Tilda Swinton's character and Bruce Banner was great. I love that so much. I thought that was really good and just added a little bit more. And a little bit more of a redemption to that character as well after the events of Doctor Strange and realizing, some of the bad things that she's done and, realizing at the time that if this is the decision that Strange made, he made it for a reason. Yeah. I thought that was really cool. So.
And and in terms of redemption, it was also it provided further justification to her character from Doctor Strange because she wasn't doing anything evil.
No.
She was just doing something forbidden in service of what she thought at the time was the greater good. Yeah. And in defense of Earth. And it just sort of came back to bite her in the ass. Mm-hmm. And so it continues that character where she is doing the violating her oath to protect the stone in an effort to do the right thing to protect Earth. And so that was really good. One-liners.
Or just things you liked.
Things I liked. I liked everything. It was 3 hours of nonstop just service.
All right. Is there anything you didn't like?
Things I didn't like. I have one.
Okay.
I felt that the number of fat jokes directed at Thor was a little bit gratuitous.
All right.
It was like, it wasn't mean-spirited, but it felt unnecessary. And there were other, like, the character was already like funny and endearing, and like I don't mind that. Like, I don't have any problem with where he was at in terms. It was the barbs that other characters were throwing at him
That's fair.
bugged me a little bit, because it just felt like it did feel unnecessary.
That being said, I will admit to really liking the do you know what courses through my veins? And then Rhodey's just like cheese whiz.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. I'm sorry. I like that one. But I could agree with that now that I think about it.
That was actually the one that pushed me over the edge, where
That's
I
fair.
was like, all right, at this point you're just being mean.
I think if they had just done that one, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But you're right. They did a few.
Like other nitpicks, I have an anti-nitpick,
Okay.
which is Black Panther did not have a loose thread on his costume this time.
There you go. That was nice.
As far as I was able to see.
I really dug how he knew Clint's name in that scene.
Yes.
After, I can't remember which movie it was, where he basically just says to him, when Clint basically tries to introduce himself, he's like, I don't care.
Yeah, it was Civil War.
It was Civil War. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I don't care. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was a nice touch. The one comedic thing that fell super flat for me was, it didn't even fall super flat. It just went on way too long, was when they first met up with Smart Hulk in the diner, and the kids come up and ask for the photo, and like that was super cute and I liked it, but and then they got into this thing. It's just like, oh, you want a picture with me? I'm Ant-Man, and then it went back and forth for way too long. I was just
the back and forth was too long.
This doesn't need to be this long.
Meanwhile, Captain America is sitting at the table and Ant-Man's getting bent out of shape over the fact that the kids don't recognize him. Like, come on.
To be fair, Captain America did recently shave.
That's true.
So,
but I mean, like, it was a funny scene. I think I agree with you that the back and forth went on too long.
Yeah.
I loved the dab though.
Oh my god, the Hulk dab at the end was absolutely painful. Anyways, I'm trying to think if there was another. I would have loved to. This is the other interesting one that they just completely have to, and I understand why. But at the end of the movie, Cap is in charge of getting all the Infinity Stones back to where they were, right? And okay, cool. Some of them seem pretty easy and make sense, but others not so much. Getting the one back to Jane seems a little weird. now you gotta go back to her and be like, here you go. The one that really makes me wonder though is the one on Vormir.
Yeah.
Because it's
freaking
red, and it's also Red Skull. Like, he would have gone back, and Red Skull would have been there. Like, I so badly want to see that. I would love. There were a bunch of people online talking about how if Marvel has any love for us, they will make 5 little or 6 little mini shorts with Chris Evans showing just how he got all 6 stones back in place.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I would love that. Oh, it would be amazing.
Oh, man.
But I thought about that. I was like, wait a minute. He would have had to go to Vormir to Red Skull. What? And I had to laugh when they went back and Red Skull did his whole bit again. When I literally just a few days ago during the last podcast talked about how often does he give that speech?
The answer is at least twice.
At least twice. He's done it at least twice now.
And Thanos was the second time.
Yeah.
So he had at least one prior opportunity to prepare.
But then, so we're kind of in this weird, because this is another sort of future thing. The stones exist again now, right?
And like, depending on how you read the time travel, like timey-wimey nonsense, possibly multiple versions of the time of various stones.
I mean, because Bruce's thing with the Sorcerer Supreme was if we take all the stones back, we will close off those branches.
Right.
So if we assume that that's true, if we assume that those 6 time branches that splintered off from the main timeline theoretically would have progressed to a point, and then once all the stones were back, they would have basically just ceased to exist. I guess is how time travel and alternate realities and time things work. I don't know. But now we're back in a spot where all 6 gems are still out there for the taking.
Yes.
Right? So it's just like you could see this happening all over again in, 20 or 30 years.
Guardians of the Galaxy 3 when Adam Warlock is like,
Yeah.
you guys had an Infinity War without me?
Yeah. I was looking forward to that. Another nitpick that I had was the funeral scene, and we talked about this last night.
Oh, yeah.
I was really bummed that Maria Hill and Coulson were not there. It made 0 sense. And if it was a scheduling thing, like, I get it. It probably was.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you look at that shot, it's pretty likely that was shot with all of those actors present.
Yeah.
They were all there at the same time. And I understand that scheduling that many, especially actors of this caliber now, at once is really hard, but it really shows. And it felt like when it winds its way through and they're all sort of grouped together in their sort of franchises, which I thought was a really nice touch. And then you get up to Carol and she's standing at the top of the stairs, and then you sort of shift to the left and you see Nick Fury walking into frame. That would have been so much better if Maria Hill and Coulson had been there.
Yeah.
So much better. And it really bums me out that they weren't able to make that work somehow. Because I think that would have been really good.
Yeah. So I mentioned on our previous podcast, like in the Endgame Hype podcast, that there were people at the premiere that I did not expect that I was hoping would be in the film.
Right.
And that was the cast of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
With like Ming-Na Wen and like 3 or 4 others.
Yep.
And so my secret hope was that they had actually had a part in the movie.
Yeah.
As like a nod to the fact that they've been sort of going on in the sidelines the whole time. And so I similarly was like, when we got to that scene, I was like, oh, maybe Coulson will they'll finally do the I'm not actually dead. And this is the thing that brings me forward to reveal the fact that I'm not actually dead.
Yeah.
And we've gone our separate ways at this point, and I'm not going to come back into the movies as a recurring character, but
BT does.
I should pay my respects to Iron Man, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't do that, and that I felt a little bummed that they didn't do that.
I'm curious. Well. I mean, I haven't watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a while.
Neither have I.
I definitely kind of fell off the bandwagon there. Presumably, the final season will deal with this in some way or another.
Yeah, my understanding is that the previous season took everything to right up to 5 minutes before the snap, and then went off the air basically.
Because the new season premieres in a few weeks, so they've timed it clearly that this is probably going to be a plot point in the final season, because this is, I think, we're into the final 2 half seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at this point. So
there will be a shot of Coulson standing behind a tree off on the far side of the property as the funeral is happening in the distance.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've probably talked a lot. Ranking this movie is kind of tricky. And I found even going back after, because I remember sitting in the studio about a year ago at 2 o'clock in the morning and talking about Infinity War and being, of course, this is my favorite Marvel movie of all time. But having a lot of time in between that now, I can say that Infinity War is probably my favorite, but only because of everything that came before it. And it's certainly not the best, I don't think. But that being said, now that we finally have Endgame, if we were to treat them as one movie, which is tricky because they're not, the Endgame is a very different, especially just in tone alone, different movie. But as one story, as one complete story, it's pretty high up there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that in 6 months after I've had a lot of time to let this sort of like process through my brain, certainly seeing it a few more times will be helpful. It might still come a close second to Civil War, which still remains, I think, like just my all-time favorite.
Winter Soldier or Civil War?
Or Civil War. Or no, Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier.
I don't know why I said Civil War. Yeah. Because that is honestly, I think, just like my favorite movie, period. Like, of all the movies.
of all
the movies? Like, of all the movies that exist.
So not MCU, but just of all movies.
Yeah, of all movies.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite movie of all time. But yeah, this was something else. So it's like it's number one on my list right now, but it probably slips a slot or two, and it'll probably end up being like Winter Soldier and then Infinity War would be my guess.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to put especially these two movies on that list, just because without everything else on that list, these movies don't exist.
Yeah.
Which is always kind of tricky.
And they're not as powerful.
They're not.
Everything else has to have happened for these movies to mean what they mean.
Yeah. In the context of the MCU, these are my two favorite movies because of what they represent and how they got to the point of even being made. And that's something we didn't even address. Like, the scale of what Marvel has done over the last 11 years has literally never been done.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have worked. Not only should it probably have not worked that well, the fact that it worked as, like, so well. Mm-hmm. Like, it's mind-boggling how well these movies worked. Even if you don't really like them, I think you have to kind of admit that what they pulled off is unbelievably impressive, regardless.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so special. So I don't know. I'm excited. Where do you put this movie, Matt?
High.
Yeah.
It is the perfect end cap for what it is.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
I cannot imagine them having done a better job doing what they were trying to do with this movie. Like, I don't see a better version of this film. No. Is basically it, right? Like, I can nitpick little things or tiny changes I would make, but I think what they were trying to do with this movie, this is the perfect version of that.
Yep.
And there's a lot to be said for that. I sort of agree with you that it's like it's tough to decontextualize from the MCU. Right now, it's my favorite. I think taken as a combination of like Infinity War and Endgame as a story is great. Whether or not it will be my favorite movie in the franchise forever.
Oh, I mean, it
probably
won't.
Not.
Yeah.
It's it's big, it's bloated, it creaks under its own weight. The fan service moments are now blown. And so, like, going back to them, they're still going to be cool, but they won't be the, like, oh, my God, I can't believe they're putting this on film.
Yeah. We had that moment last night, and that's the only time we're ever going to have that one.
Yeah.
So
all of those things where it's like, oh, I've been wishing something like this would happen, are over.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm not going to recapture that, I don't think. I expect to still enjoy rewatching it, but not in the same way.
I compare it to, I was thinking about this morning. I was trying to think of like the last time that I had these kind of feelings for a film franchise, and it probably hasn't been since Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And Return of the King, and walking out of the theater and just being completely speechless and blown away. And that was a completely different time. 2003, by the way.
Was Return of the King?
Return of the King was 2003.
Good grief.
It's been 16 years since that movie came out. It was 16 years this December. And that was the first time. I remember hearing about them making Lord of the Rings into a franchise while I still lived with my parents.
Right.
Right, is how old these damn movies are. And that was only, 3 years. And 3 movies.
Yeah.
And a story that I was familiar with. And that's something that probably helped that. I grew up, I read Lord of the Rings, and I loved those books, and I was excited to see those movies. But comics are so much more vast and different and weird and they very rarely make any sense because there's just so much of it. And for somebody to come along and make sense of it and put it into, what the MCU is really cool and special, and we should be happy that we have it.
I am.
All right. I think that's going to do it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this very long journey. It's not over. Countdown to Infinity. It's a bad name now.
Countdown to Far From Home.
Yeah. We'll continue. Matt and I will continue to review, if this is what you want to call this.
Discuss.
Gush about every MCU film that comes out, at least for the next. I plan to be alive for another at least 35 years.
I plan to not die.
Ever? Wow.
As long as they're making these movies is the second half, or the second clause of that statement. But as long as they're MCU movies to see, you will find an excuse to not die.
Death. You'll cheat death. I like it. That makes sense. Thank you to everybody watching and listening. We couldn't do these podcasts without you and your support over at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at James_LRR. He's at Matt_LRR. You can find everything that we do over at LoadingReadyRun.com. Matt streams over on his Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Wiggins. That's WIGGINS.
Yeah.
You can find all that information in the description below. We'll be back in, what is it? It's the end of April, so May, June. We'll be back in about 9 weeks with the next episode. No, that's not true. The next episode is going to be
Into the Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse. We did say that we were going to do that. So in about 8 weeks, just before Far From Home comes out, we will do a special, not MCU episode of Countdown to Infinity about the Spider-Mans Into the Spider-Verse, and then we'll do Far From Home, and then we wait.
I would like to see if we can come up with a couple of episodes about, like, maybe we just do an episode about the X-Men franchise.
What I would like to do is, once we have an idea of what the heck the next couple years are going to look like, maybe later this year we can sit down and have a discussion about, like, what those movies could look like, and what some of them could even be about, and if they are completely new IPs, what those IPs even are. Because, like, they could just... I would assume that we're going to see a few new heroes thrown into the mix over the next couple of years, and I'm excited to check out what that's going to be like. So, all right. We're going to go watch Endgame again. It is really good. I like it a lot.
We're not going to do that right now, but you should.
You should. This is This is awkward when there's video.
Ting.
So what do you think about there not being a mid-credit or post-credit scene? Because there wasn't one.
There wasn't one.
So
there was Iron Man hammering on his armor.
It was like a 3-part credit with a really phenomenal sort of like end of an era. Here's all of these characters
with their autographs.
Well, that was for the original 6. They did that. It was really great. I loved it a lot. And then they went to the traditional black and white credit scroll, and then we got to the Marvel Studios logo, and you could hear in the background the tinging of Iron Man back in the cave and Iron Man 1 creating that suit.
Yeah.
And that was it. There was no coming up next or hints. Now, that being said, I argue that those scenes did exist. They just existed in the actual movie, especially like the Guardians specifically.
Yeah.
Was like, that was a post-credit scene.
Yeah. Come, Rabbit, let's go.
Yeah. So I personally thought it was a good choice.
Yeah.
I think that putting those just in the movie and just letting things end made a tremendous amount of sense. I honestly wish that they had done this back. I said this before, and I stick to it.
You were about to say the same thing I was about to say,
which was
that I wish they had not done one in Infinity War.
Yeah. I when we rewatched Infinity War on Sunday or Monday, I can't remember what it was, but when we rewatched it, if you don't remember, the post-credit scene in that is Nick Fury and Maria Hill in I assume New York, and the dusting starts happening, and he gets the signal away to Captain Marvel and that pager. That end credit could have so easily been at the end of Captain Marvel's movie, and I don't know why they didn't do it.
Yeah.
And they should have just left
particularly since the end credit scene of Captain Marvel teasing Endgame actually doesn't fit in with the story as Endgame is told.
Yeah.
Because Captain Marvel shows up on Earth.
Yeah.
Irrelevant of the pager showing up. Like
they kind of, so from what I understand, there isn't actually a whole lot that got left in the cutting room floor of this movie.
That
apparently the director's cut is only a few minutes longer, but there isn't a lot of explanation between him paging Captain Marvel and her somehow knowing exactly where Tony and Nebula and Rocket were, right?
Yeah.
She just found them
happens
magically,
across them,
which is like
on her way to Earth.
I don't know if that's true, but like it wasn't really explained because the post-credit scene in Captain Marvel was it was Rogers and
Rhodey
and Nat being like, hey, this pager stopped doing its thing, and then she appears.
Yeah.
Which is a great scene and obviously clearly filmed just simply for that post-credit scene.
Yeah.
But I think had they just forgotten about that, don't worry about that scene. Put the scene that was during Infinity War at the end of Captain Marvel, which I think would have fit incredibly well.
Yeah, because she gives him the pager, and that's that.
Yeah. So I think that would have been great. But that being said, I'm very happy with how the credits shook out for Endgame.
Yeah.
Because this is the end. Like you don't just tease the next thing. Like just let it
end.
Let it sit. Let us just enjoy it. Especially because I love that they did it, because like they've conditioned the audience over the last 10 years to sit and wait and expect something. And I love the fact that they made us sit and wait and nothing happened.
Yeah.
And it was just like, yeah, you know what? Maybe it was probably okay for us just to sit there and take in those credits and just
sit with the movie
just for a few minutes before we just get up and move on with our lives.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. I liked it.
Yep, I agree entirely.
Cool. All right. Now we're actually done. You also should still go watch Endgame, though. It's very good.
I hope you have watched Endgame before listening to this podcast.
Yeah, spoiler warning.
Just in case you were not aware.